I've had labor before and an emergency cesarean. I've recovered from a cesarean, which is a major surgery. So I know pain, and I would say I have a high threshold of pain. But this, it was, they should have just killed me. That would have been better. That was near death for me. Today's video is going to be a little intense in case you are a person who has had traumatic experiences in the past. You could be triggered. But also, I feel, especially if you are a woman, this video of mine would maybe help you understand a lot of things if you have been, um, if you have experienced a similar kind of trauma that I went through. I hope this helps you in some way, and maybe you can talk about it, or maybe you feel that you're not alone. Hi, I'm Lovely, and this is The Lovely Life. I know it's been long that I've done long form videos, and I've been wanting to do this for such a long time, and I've been getting requests to do more channeling videos and, put more content where I channel information and all those things. Uh, but a lot happened in my life. In case you're tuning in for the first time, I am Lovely. I am a psychic medium and a light language healer. And this channel of mine is all about, the spiritual stuff, the paranormal. So we channel deities, we receive information from the other side, which can be useful, for one and all. And I basically receive information through various clairs of mind that includes clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairsentience, and many more. And I also do a little bit of automatic writing. And through all those layers, I receive information from the other side. I receive messages from people who have passed away, your loved ones on the other side, and angels, spirit guides, alien friends, and many more. Today's video is going to be a little intense. Mainly why I am doing this, and after so many months or maybe years of not making long form content for the internet, for my YouTube channel, why I am back with a video which is talking about my personal trauma, the trauma that I went through during my childbirth, is because as a spiritual person in my journey, I have understood there were a lot of things that I had to let go. I had to release in order to grow more. So this was something that I had to put it out there for various reasons, and I had to bring it outside of me. And also, I feel this will be therapeutic for me, and then maybe I'll be more ready to make more content, and on channeling and everything. Although, yes, I've been um, making a lot of content, making a lot of reels on my Insta page. You can follow me on Instagram. You can find the link somewhere in this video, or, on the subscriber page. But yeah, so I used to put shorts and all those reels again, which was difficult because of the things that happened during these past couple of years. Huge lessons, literally huge lessons. I lost both of my mom and dad, both of my parents, uh, in a span of 2 years. And it's just been 7 or 8 months that I passed, that my mom transitioned. And it was huge. Being a channeler, I have always spoken to people who are grieving, because that's what I do. I'm a medium, I connect them to their loved one. And I pretty much felt that I understand afterlife. So maybe when I will be in that position, it would be easier. Which, yes, I feel, yes, the knowledge helped. But again, there is this physical part of it, the loss of it, losing somebody's physical self, especially if they've been always around you and, you're so connected to them. It takes a toll on your physical and mental health. It's another ball game altogether. So yeah, I'm still grieving. And one thing after so many months that I would like to share about grief, if anybody who's watching is grieving a loved one, is that trust me, it gets better. And when I say that, I do not mean that the pain would reduce or it just would vanish one day. No, that won't happen, because that grief would be a part of your life until you choose to leave this place, until you go and the reunion happens. But yes, we sort of get used to it, and maybe you find tools to accept the fact that, yeah, this is what happened and they're no more there in the physical. Although know that you can always receive messages from them. And yeah, so that's what we are doing here. And again, if you don't feel that this video is not for you, you can always choose to move away. But I am making this content so that there is some kind of awareness around childbirth, which is one major part of a woman's life, at some day, unless you're choosing not to have children ever, which is, again, I am not against it. It's a personal choice. Yeah, so let me begin. So, this particular story of mine is about my second childbirth. It is about when I gave birth to my second baby. She is 3.5 years old now. And this all began even before I conceived. So before I get into that, so I've always had premonic dreams, premonitions. I've always seen things, unfortunately, bad things, or, all these unforeseen events before they would happen. It took me a while to understand, okay, maybe I am tapping into something that's going to happen in future, which I could not avoid, even though I saw those things in dreams. So similarly, one day I woke up with this. It was a combination of longing for a baby and dread, because in that particular dream, I saw that I have given birth, and it's still as clear as day, the memory of it. And I saw in my dream my mother was there, and I was holding a very fragile looking female baby, a girl, a girl, baby girl. And I was sobbing. I was crying because I couldn't feed her and I couldn't pacify her. And I felt I was in a bad state. The pain, the agony, and the baby was crying, and my mother was around. The only person I saw in that dream was my mom, apart from the baby. And trust me, my second childbirth was everything that I saw in that dream. Even though that dream came to me, as it also brought in this longing for having a second baby. And back at that moment, I already had my elder one, and she was quite big. She was around 8 or 9 years old, I think. And we were not even planning for another child. And this was before COVID. And yeah, but I had this longing for being a mother again, even breastfeeding a baby. But somewhere in my subconscious, or somewhere even consciously, I knew this was going to be difficult. And every part of that pregnancy was difficult. I had lost weight throughout, although I was taking care of myself. My mom was away. But yeah, I was not somebody who was like, picky eater or something. And I never had, in my first childbirth, I never had anything like morning sickness or anything. So even this pregnancy, I didn't have those symptoms, but it was weird. I would have morning sickness during the later, the third trimester, which was very bad because you already have this huge belly and then, you can't eat. With that, I had severe hip pain, severe back issues, and I had lost weight to the extent my jaw became so visible. I didn't know that. I didn't realize it, but people started telling me like I was already super sick. But I felt that's fine because I never put on, even in my first pregnancy, I never had put on extra, pounds. It was only the baby weight, but I was healthy looking. And yeah, so, but yes, about after this dream, I thought, okay, and I had already, the first childbirth was very traumatic for me. It was an emergency cesarean. It was not at all informed. Everything was done in a hurry. There was a lot of fear around the whole birth. And, my family was traumatized that, you have to make this decision and all sorts of things. And me being a yoga practitioner, I've always felt out of control in these situations where you have to just submit, surrender to these people in the medical field. And, even though you know things, it's very difficult. It's, oh my God, it's like one of the major lessons that you would go through in your life. And I'm sure if somebody has ever been hospitalized that's close to you, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, so so that happened, and I thought, okay, this decision has come to me, and at that point, I had healed my body like anything. I was before I conceived, I was at my healthiest weight. I was a Zumba instructor. I was doing all sorts of things, until COVID, and I was taking my private classes, a group class I had. So I was taking yoga and I was super fit. And I all those symptoms that I had post childbirth, even my depression that became worse after my first baby, postpartum depression I had for many years. I had healed all of that, and I'm working with spirit. So it was amazing. But anyway, so around before COVID, I think we decided, okay, so my husband was back after many years of living away from the family. So he was back, and, like many other couples, things were good between us. And I had healed, and, COVID brings the family. COVID brought a lot of pain to a lot of people, but it also, a lot of couples were rekindling their relationship. There was a lot of time that was spent together. So, yeah, we decided to have another baby. But I thought I was ready. I had this longing. I can't even say I was ready. I knew I had seen my baby even before I conceived her, even though I had this feeling that it's going to be difficult. So I conceived, and the pregnancy was super difficult. And I had a plan to fly to Kerala for a natural birth. There's this place, it's a famous place, it's called Birth Village, where even a famous actress, Kalki Keklan, she gave birth, and now it is, it's one of the very famous. You can find it on Instagram. And trust me, if you are expecting, go look it up. And that's one. It's run by a female who is certified in midwifery from the US, and she's super sensitive. They have all the amenities, and they even have the amenities for, in case there's an emergency, if they need um, you know, uh, an emergency cesarean, they even have that. They do all of that. And it is like giving birth at home, and, your family can be together. So I had that plan. Then I inquired about all of those things. But um, there was this major lesson that I had to learn. But because of COVID, I couldn't fly. And at that moment, I thought maybe that was a little too expensive. So I couldn't actually convince my husband for that also, because I was thinking it would be much more easier here, which was not the right thing to think about the expense at that time. It was foolish of me. Anyway, so I was consulting somebody here. Then she got COVID. But so in my 8th month, when I tried to reach out to that place, the one of the nurses picked up the call, or I don't know, it was somebody at the front desk. They said she will not be available. My OBGYN will not be available for a couple of months. And 8th month it was, and I was already terrified at the fact that because I had so much trauma from my first childbirth, I was super scared. I don't know if I could share at that moment. Maybe my mom knew, but my husband was oblivious to the fact that how terrified I was. But yeah, so they said we won't even know when she would be back, because at that time people were not sharing it. If you have COVID, you won't tell people. It was that kind of, and especially it being an OBGY, she being an OBGYN, she didn't want to maybe lose clients, but she was good. So I had no other way than to go to another practitioner, another OBGYN who had a clinic close to my place. And I thought, okay, maybe this is a sign. And she was also a yoga practitioner from where from my teacher. She used to come in the same school. So I thought, okay, but I had, so that's why we say sometimes we ignore the red flags. But with this second lady, which I told, was close by, I've had a couple of bad experiences, but they were subtle. And again, being in India, I don't know how it is in the other parts of the world. I mean, yeah, but in India, the medical system in general is pathetic. I would not like anybody to go through any of the illnesses. They should never be hospitalized, whether it is childbirth, whether it is anything, whether it is terminally ill people, whether it is tests. It's super pathetic, and they're just there. Again, nothing against doctors in general, but I seriously feel they're not sensitive people. I mean, most of them, maybe I have never come across the good ones. Again, I should not be generalizing, but yeah, again, my experience haven't been good. So I thought, okay, this was a sign, but sometimes what happens, and let me just share one channeled information to you, maybe it would help. Sometimes when we listen to our intuition, not sometimes, we feel that, it would always lead us to joy. Trust me, it is not always the case. It could also at times lead us to pain. Maybe you didn't know that. Because if there's a lesson to be learned, your guides or even would show you that, yeah, this is the right thing because there's growth there. Yes, physically, it might have been traumatic for you. So this particular experience was something like that, something of that sort for me. So, okay, anyway, I went there and I was super apprehensive, but then I thought, and this was the next visit was very important for me because I had to ask her permission to let my husband be by my side, which is not common in India. They don't let anybody go in, which is again scary. You're all alone with nurses and doctors looking on you. And there would even be, ward boys, which would be men. And it's super uncomfortable, super traumatic. So that went well. I had a few little issues. And I was also consulting somebody who's a nutritionist. So she was guiding with, again, she was also through my yoga guru. She was, again, a yoga practitioner. She's certified nutritionist. She was helping me with, even though I had low weight, but the baby weight was always good. The baby was growing healthy. So, that was good. So we went for that. And then the dreadful day came. I don't know. I love my child, but I still feel, I know there was a lesson, there was a huge lesson, and I must have signed up for it before coming in. But that's one thing that I would like to change, or change every part of it. Then I was strictly told that you cannot wait post your due date, which, if you're a woman or if you've ever given birth, due date is just, um, they calculate it, but it's not actually the accurate date, because you never know when you exactly conceived on which date. So they just, calculate it. You can do it online. There are these apps and you can do it over the internet. It's like about 40 weeks from the last, when you last got your period. So I was told that, and as the date started coming in, I became more active, as in I started climbing up like 100 stairs and all that, because I was told to do all that. And I was feeling good. And by then, my mom had traveled with a lot of difficulty, because again, it was COVID and she was in her 60s. So, we didn't want her to travel, but she traveled alone so that she could be there by my side. So that day came, and my pain started. And I had decided I will not go to the hospital unless my labor pain starts. So around, I think, late morning, it started. And I was strictly told by my doctor that as soon as the pain starts, let us know. And I know by now, with all the stories that I've heard from numerous women and, watching it on YouTube, the more time that they get, the more intervention, unnecessary medical intervention that they do. Childbirth is a natural process. Like we have a lot of cattle, roaming around on the streets. You would never see them out in the open give birth to a calf, the cows. They go to a secluded place, they take their own time, they are in labor, they just relax, and maybe there's a couple of other cows who surround them. That's how it should be. That's how safe and natural it should be. But here, they do everything to make you fearful, starting from the consultations. Because even though I kept on, so again, there was a red flag which I ignored. So to this lady, to this current OBGYN, I kept on telling her, see, I'm squatting, I'm super fit. Yes, I have a little low weight, but my baby is amazing. And I've waited so long, and I've, conceived after so many years. So I want a normal birth. So please do help me with that. So she constantly told me one thing, which I didn't know was a sign. I could have backed off. Always, be open to cesarean, be open to cesarean, which maybe a lot of doctors say so that it doesn't come. But mine was not like an informed case. But then, yeah, so back to this day when my labor pain begins. And then my husband was again super scared. And he's not so spiritual and, emotionally intelligent. So he didn't exactly get why I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go there as later as possible, as late as possible. I waited a couple of hours, and I thought maybe my mom and daughter staying at home would be safer than they coming, because I was thinking, okay, I'll just go deliver the baby and come back. Although I was super scared, but I've always been somebody who would try. I mean, that's how it's been in our house. My mom was like that. My sister is like that. We would, even in our pain, we would try to keep other people, okay, not to bother them that much. So I thought, okay, maybe it's like during the middle of night, let me just not wake up everybody, disturb everybody's sleep. But again, that was a bad idea. I should have taken them with me. The whole family should have gone, but I chose only my husband, although it was very near. So we went there around evening, and I was keeping a track of my contractions. And weirdly, so during my first childbirth, I can say I was not informed. I was really young. I was just 25. It was my first baby. Internet was not so much in there, so I didn't know about these things. In fact, I never thought. Again, I was super healthy. So cesarean never came to my mind even for a second. I mean, consciously, yes, that was the subconscious fear. And in fact, I used to say to my mama, I just, but I, don't want that, but other things are fine. I never feared that the baby would be like a lot of mothers do. The baby should be healthy. And my elder one was super healthy, weight wise and everything. But anyway, okay. So then we called. So they were like, okay, quickly come in. But I was a little apprehensive. But again, I didn't want to bother my family during the middle, doing things in the middle of night. So I went, and we took a room. So this OBGYN was not present in the hospital. She had gone somewhere outside for a case. So they told me, okay, they give you enema, they wash your tummy. Every time they would call me, I would get numb and I will be super scared. And I would tell my husband that be with me. But for various reasons, he was never around. He was maybe checking out rooms and he was doing all the paperwork initially. So every time they would take me inside, I would somehow want to run outside. Even though I knew, like my nutritionist, who is also somebody, my nutritionist who was guiding me with all the food, who also helps a lot of people, you know, uh, helping them with childbirth, whose whole family has had natural births in their house. Their mom has done that. So she always used to tell me, okay, they might inject a lot of things. There will be injectables, there will be various hormones in the IV. So if you're not feeling weak and all, don't get it. So I said no to a couple of those things, which was again not appreciated by the nurses because they don't want you to ask anything. If you go to a doctor, they prescribe you something, you can't even ask. This is a norm. You can't even ask why, what do I have, and why are you prescribing this? In India, if you ask questions, they would get super irritated. And I've had many experiences like that, even from physicians. They would ask me, we don't owe you an explanation. They would say that on your face and they would be super irritable. So, yeah, the nurses didn't like me saying all that. I thought, okay, flushing my belly is fine. I will not feel the heaviness and it would be smooth because I was aiming for a natural birth. Then I was told that, so this was around 5 or something, 5 in the evening, and I was told in a couple of hours the OBGYN will be back. And I kept on, so they checked my belly. So the nurses said, okay, yeah, the contractions are getting closer. So I was like happier. Okay, this is going to end soon. And, I'll be done and the baby will be, I'll get to hold the baby and all that. Then I was sent back to my room and I was called again. I'm sorry I could get emotional. And yes, this is going to be a little long video. It's taken me 3 years to make this video, 3.5. My little man is 3.5. Because initially I dealt with a lot of PTSD. I would literally wake up in the middle of the night thinking that I'm in the same operation theater and they are doing things to me. So they called me again. I went alone inside and I saw that the OBGYN had come. She whispered into the nurse's ear in Hindi. She said, मैं water break करूंगी, which means I am going to break her water. But it was so subtle. I was entering and there was another door, for the in. There were like two women. Okay, there was one more red flag. Because I had told, again, that was a sign. But if you have to go through something, you become oblivious to all those things. So I had been telling them that I want my husband near me. But as soon as I went there for the birth, I heard them discussing, or somebody told them, okay, call another woman who was already going to have, she knew it was her, she had a difficult case. So she knew another mother and another mom to be, she knew that she's going to have a cesarean. So they suddenly called that woman also. And so there were two women, two mom to be's in the same labor room. And the labor room was again pathetic. There were these tiny beds, and again, gross. So obviously, if there are two women, I can't ask my husband to be there, right? But anyway, I was by that time, my pain had increased so much that I didn't notice that. Later on, these things came to me. So the OBGYN, I heard her saying that I'm going to break the water, but it didn't register. And by that time, my contractions had increased. She asked me to lie down. I was shivering. I had not even kept my feet fully on the bed. It was like a tiny, thin, narrow bed. I was asking her, ma'am. I called her ma'am because, again, she was a fellow yoga practitioner. I said, ma'am, is it necessary? I said in Hindi, ye karna zaruri hai. Is it necessary to break the water? Because, again, that was a traumatic memory from my first birth. So as soon as I heard that, maybe my body reacted. I became numb. And she shoved her hand into my vagina and broke my water. I couldn't even finish that sentence. She didn't even check how many centimeters I was dilated. I was lying down so that she could tell me how far I am and how many more hours I have to bear the pain and how far is the baby. My water broke. I started that pain. I will never forget that pain. I can't actually say that I've never been raped because I felt violated. A woman doing this without permission, without informing, just because you are a doctor, is not okay. They held my hand and they did this to me, and my water broke. That pain, funny thing, throughout throughout my pregnancy, there was this one sentence that gynac, not the the latter part. She used to say, your amniotic fluid is an essential part for the baby. It's where it lives. So it was little low. So she said, you need to take care of it because when the amniotic fluid will not be there, how will the baby survive? So what did you just do? What shock did you just give that baby? What shock? Now I know that there is this hormone called oxytocin, which a woman needs for the contractions to improve and to have a healthy childbirth. It's a happy hormone. What kind of a woman will feel safe in that space? Feel loved in that kind of a space where this is done. And then they say all sorts of things like, okay, look at this water. This has meconium. She told me the same story which I had heard from like 10 years ago from my first OBGYN. It was like I was living my worst nightmare or the worst reality all over again. I knew, yes, next she's gonna show me the water. She put the murky water from the amniotic fluid onto my hand. I was lying there crying in pain. They showed me, see, the baby has pooped. I think we need a cesarean. They didn't even give me 1 hour of labor. I had walked to the I had planned so much that I thought, okay, I'll climb the stairs. I would do anything. I would squat. Then they brought me outside. They had given me a scrub, which again, you know how it is, it's backless. They told me to squat. The pain. So, okay, how contractions work naturally, if the right conditions are there. Nowadays, people have music, the family will be around. Even when you're not actually in a pool of water, that's not necessary. The surrounding matters, the ambience matters, so that the oxytocin works, so that she feels safe. She's safe. But this whole area, and then they do that to you, and then I was brought outside. Then they started telling me, okay, now push, squat, and they gave me a rag. After that, I couldn't. I don't even remember if I thought about my husband, of calling him. I was all alone in that room with all these people. And then they told me to squat. Okay, okay, squat karo, pura baith jao. I said, like, sit fully. They gave me a rag to put under my feet. It was maybe 16 by 16. A rag. It looked like a rug, like a foot mat. I was standing there. Is that how am I supposed to deliver a baby? And I am there naked, almost naked. My family is not there. I'm in severe pain. The nurses are talking. What kind of I don't know. And how can such people be calling themselves healers or doctors or nurses? You're not doing any good. I don't think I can wrap this up in one video. But anyway, then they started telling me, then they started. So I still tried my best to, push the baby out, but that they told me, they started showing me every now and then. They would check the oxy, I don't know what it is called, where they check the heartbeat of the baby. Until they did this, I had to ask the nurse, is the heartbeat okay? But after this, every second they would show me, see, it is increasing. See, the baby is panicky. See, it has pooped more. It would be scared. Obviously, the surrounding that it was safe in the amniotic fluid. It's no more there. It didn't break on its own. What have you done? Obviously, it is a shock to the baby. I couldn't push. I am sobbing in pain. Then the pain I almost died on that table. I have never experienced, I've had labor before and an emergency cesarean. I've recovered from a cesarean, which is a major surgery. So I know pain, and I would say I have a high threshold of pain. But it was, they should have just killed me. That would have been better. That was near death for me. At that point, I started screaming for my mom. I started calling her. I was disassociating. Then my husband came in, and they started telling, so she's being super rigid for wanting to have a normal birth, even after all this. And it was not even half an hour. They said, okay, you have to sign papers because we are not going to take any responsibility if she passes away or the baby passes away. So my husband became scared. So he said, okay, I want both of you. Let me just sign these things. And I thought, then I agreed for the cesarean. And I thought, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe I am destined for this. And, okay, let the baby be safe because I've took care of her, 9 months. And I wanted to hold her in my hands. So I agreed for the cesarean. This has been a super difficult video to shoot, but this was not the end of my story. There's more to come. If you're okay watching, do watch the second part of it because I want to bring this out. I want people to know that this exists, this happens with women. It's very common. It's very common. Nobody talks about it because women are giving birth everywhere. Nobody talks about postpartum trauma. Nobody talks about abuse during childbirth. So I think this is, I had to do this anyway. So thank you so much for watching until now. I would be continuing this in the second part of this video. Thank you. If you feel any content that I make resonates with you, do subscribe to my channel and press the like button if you feel you resonated with me in this.